Folks, welcome to episode 3 of the Mind Your Miles podcast. This is a coaching podcast that's a little bit different. My name is Nick Hilton. I am here with my two friends, Will Baldwin and Dylan Bellis. We're going to kick things off here before we get into our main topic with a little rapid fire question. Will Baldwin, what is your favorite race that you've ever run?
Man, that's a good question.
This
Dylan, do you
could
have
be
an
just a
answer?
course you like. This could be for sentimental reasons. I really don't care. Just asking the question. Go ahead, Dylan.
What's Dylan's answer?
Yeah, I can go first. I would pick Boilermaker 15K. Not necessarily because it's the best course or the best city for that reason, but it was actually one of my first road races that I ever did, and it was close to where I was born in Ithaca, New York. So Utica wasn't too far up the road. So it was one of the very first races that I did, and yeah, it was cool. Big race, and yeah, there's a pro field there now. I mean, there's always been a pro field there, and it's always really fast too. But last time I ran it, I don't think I ran it in high school, and then I ran it like my first year or two of college. I think I've run it two times, and it's always been really fun. And yeah, just always good to be back up in upstate New York.
Willie B.
I'm gonna go the Pemberton 50K in Fountain Hills. It's really, really small, 2 loops near Phoenix, which is my favorite city. And it just has like a lot of it's just such a really small race. It has like a weird amount of like ultra and running history. Like there was all these like old battles between like Ian Torrance and Josh Brimhall, and Jim Walmsley has the record there. And there's just like a lot of old dudes that will sit there and like tell you all these cool stories of guys training for it and running it back in the day. And so, and it's just, yeah, super small and local, cool vibes.
Nice. My favorite race is the Berwick Run for the Diamonds. It's a 9 miler on Thanksgiving in Pennsylvania. It's a race it's no one really knows about. It's got a ton of history. Guys like Fitzinger used to run it back in the 70s. Tons of really fast times. The course record's like 43 and change on a pretty hilly 9 mile course, and then they give out diamonds to the top 8 finishers. The higher up you finish, the bigger the diamond you get. Yeah.
Like what?
So
What are we talking?
I think the year that I
Just
got
hand
it,
you a rock or?
you get a yeah. So the men get a diamond and a ring. I think when I won it, it was a half carat diamond that you got when you were the winner.
In a ring?
The In a ring, yeah.
How did they know your size?
They don't. It's just a generic sized ring. It's more about the diamond than the ring itself.
That's
What do
pretty
I
cool.
do with that?
You can do what I did because I was broke and I pawned it, but
What'd you get for it?
I got a couple $100. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So, but it's a cool race. It was again one of the first road races I ever ran, like right out of college. It was the closest finish in like the 75-year history of the race. I got outkicked right at the end, and then I came back and won it a couple years later in 2015. So, really cool local race in Pennsylvania. It's got a ton of history. I would recommend looking it up and checking it out.
Who'd you lose to?
I lost to I'm forgetting his name now. Yeah, I'll have to hold. I'll look it up. I forget his
That's
name
fine.
off the top of my head.
I don't go to the East Coast, so
Anyways, let's get to today's main topic. This topic comes to you by way of Mr. Dylan Bellis, who came up with the idea. The topic is what runners focus too much on and what they focus too little on. So, as coaches, we have these conversations with our clients all the time, and we've talked to obviously dozens and hundreds of other runners outside of that. And there are some things that just everyone gets hung up on, and there are some things that people just don't or refuse to spend enough time thinking about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to kick it over to Will, since you're the first person on my screen here to start us off here on this conversation.
doesn't matter which way I go. I'm gonna go what maybe they focus too much on. And I think it's hard for us because we coach a lot of people on VDOT, and we often the platform gives people an easy day pace. And I beg people to not put too much into that. And because I think so much of easy running, like talking about that focus, is like a feel and like effort base, and I think about probably the best athlete that I have. He's always way slower than his range. And it's for like many reasons. He lives in like a super hilly area. Sometimes he'll like push one of his kids in a stroller. And I've also just ingrained it into his head, like, just let it be easy, recover. And he crushes big, hard sessions all the time. He's an incredible racer, the best racer I've ever coached. Every single race is like a perfect progression, negative split. But yeah, like whatever that range is that's given, he's probably always a minute and a half slower. But just understanding that, like, oh yeah, I'm in the right. Yeah, I was at the right effort. So like that focus of figuring that out, you know, figuring out your effort levels to get what we want. So, what we're trying to get is some aerobic stimulus, and we get some progression off that, but we're trying to get ready for that next hard day. And those are the important ones, and not getting bogged down by the pace. And I've always really pushed people to, and this is the way I do it on my watch, all I have is the time. And so, or if you're a mileage person, just having the mileage and just running that, and not looking at any. Take auto split off your watch, please. It's annoying to run with you when you have it. It doesn't do anything. And, just going by feel and not looking. And then when you get done, like, oh, I felt really good today. And then you look, oh, wow, actually, we were kind of moving. And then vice versa. Like, oh, I felt really bad. And sometimes that's how I've always kind of known when I'm getting pretty fit. Like, man, I felt like I was walking and the pace is like pretty fast. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. So yeah, easy day pace. Don't focus on that. Focus on your effort.
Did you guys ever have like a magic number? Like when you guys were, I don't know, high school or college, that you were like, oh, I have to run this pace or it's not worth the
In
run?
college, I almost never ran an easy mile over 7 minutes. And I often would, I would run for like 4 or 5 minutes. And if I was like way too off, I would stop and delete it and then start again. Or from my apartment, I would walk up to like the top where the weight room was, so I could start on like a big slope and carry that momentum in. And I wouldn't, like, if guys were like, oh, I'll run a hilly route, I'd be like, nah, sounds like a 7:10 pace. Can't do that.
I'm going to show my age here, but we didn't have GPS watches in college or high school, so it's tough to say like what pace we were actually running. I really have no idea. I would say we averaged 7-minute pace, but we had some days we were faster, some days we were slower. But yeah,
Mhm.
we
Bro,
used to
when I
make fun of
came,
the kid who did have a GPS watch, and we would leave him
They look-
behind while he was trying to sync his big
they
old
were
Garmin
so big
310.
too.
Yeah.
When I got on the team, all the guys were like dudes Nick's age, because Nick's like a couple years older than me, and it was like my age was when GPS was coming around, and they all had all these routes that they called like the 7-mile route and 9-mile route, and we just every week would like crush their spirits that for 5 years they thought they were running 9 miles every morning, and it was like 8.4.
We would use, so we didn't, I never used a GPS watch, or I just had like one of those Ironman Timex watches, and I would use Map My Run. So I would like map the route before I ran, and then I would compare what my watch said to that route. And I don't really remember much in high school, but in early college, I remember in the summers or in the winters, it's like I have to run 6-minute pace every day. Every day. And this would work out. This would work out really well for a time, and I'd come into August and September and I would just absolutely crush previous PRs from my previous years. But then by like mid-September or October, I was just toast. I was just done. So it was like I kind of find like a cheat code to get really fit and really strong from someone who didn't have the aerobic background. But then it would always just come back to bite me, and I'd end up just burning out by the end of the year. And almost there's like 3 seasons in a row, my coach was like, "Hey, you got to take this whole month off," because I was just so burnt that I was going and doing, I remember doing 400-meter repeats on the track and running. Like, I remember doing like an 80-second, 120-second 400, and that felt like all out. And at that point, that was supposed to be like, what I was supposed to run for 10K or something like that. So yeah, definitely made a lot of stupid mistakes there. especially on the trying to hit a magic number for whatever reason because it looked nice.
So what's our next? Dylan? What's your next thing? What are people focusing too much on?
I think kind of with the actual pacing of things too. I think the specifics of the week. So at least for me, and something that again, another mistake that I made. I think of a lot of the value that I provide to my athletes and seeing their mistakes are the same mistakes that I made when I was coming up in the sport too. I feel like to have the knowledge to be able to help other people, at least for myself, like I've probably made every mistake, had very similar injuries, had experienced almost the exact same thing. So I can speak from experience, but definitely the number, the mileage per week. I get the kind of the neuroticism of, hey, I have to hit 30 miles or 40 miles or 60 or 100 or whatever it is. And then having to do that week over week over week with ignoring the fact that, hey, that really doesn't matter that much. You should probably emphasize the recovery a little bit more. But that's another big one that at least I see regularly, and a trap that I've fallen into, at least with my history. But as I've gotten more experienced in the sport, it's not something that I've ever really kept track of, at least not on a daily basis. But I kind of look back and I'll be like, oh, I actually ran X amount of miles this week, kind of similar to what you were saying, Will, about the pace. You kind of look at it after the fact and be like, oh, I actually ran quite a bit, but not actually worrying about the specific number on the weekend.
That's one thing I'm really proud of. Last fall, the guy who coaches me and most of our team runs, and we lost the cat. Oh my gosh, you got kicked out.
She does not like when I'm talking because she has to talk too. So had to get her out of here.
I love that. No, but last fall, because my stuff was written in time, and I kind of many years ago stopped really caring about that. I had probably 5-6 weeks in a row that were like between 95 and 99.9 miles, and back in the day would have easily just added something in to scooch those weeks over, but I really just don't care. I know it was a great week and did what I was supposed to, and so you just kind of let it be.
The mileage thing, I mean, as a has been, maybe never was, I've had to completely rewrite my own personal approach to that stuff and just like throw away any notions that I had previously about mileage because I physically can't run the type of mileage that I did at my peak. So, I mean, that's been a whole psychological journey in and of itself to try to erase that from my brain and just not worry about what that number says at the end of the week, but worry about that. Hey, is there progress? Am I healthy? Am I moving in the right direction? If those things are all true, then it's a positive week, regardless of what the number at the end of the week is. Um, I think with clients, it's always tough. They always want to run more mileage. Hey, can I do more mileage, more mileage, more mileage? But um, oftentimes, the second we bump up a little bit or we add to those daily, because it's the daily runs, like the workouts are always a little longer. It's like, okay, well, then you need to go from running 45 minutes per day to running an hour to an hour 10 or hour 20 per day. Like, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between understanding like what that actually looks like on a daily basis versus, just wanting to have the number. And then you get fatigue and issues with time management and all these other things. So yeah, I think the focus on mileage is gets a little crazy after a while. And it's like, hey, we just need to chill and do what we need to do to progress and go in the right direction.
Dude, probably like 80% of the time someone at the end of a season has asked for that, like, oh, I think we could run a little more. And then I look back over, there's generally like quite a few missed runs, like just for life. And it's like, yeah, if we like focus on the consistency, and also when you get faster, like you tend to just naturally run a little bit more. But yeah, like if we just did the exact same setup as next block and we didn't miss all those runs, we are going to run a lot more regardless. So there's only been like a handful of instances where I'm like, No, you're right. Like you handled everything. We're kind of ready for a bump.
I think volume, of course, is important. As we know, I mean, we gradually ran a little bit more almost every single year when we first started running, and then at some point it kind of plateaus a little bit. I think a lot of the athletes that we're working with, they do have more time constraints too. So you have to work within that. So it doesn't make sense if someone's running 3 or 4 days a week to have them running, 12 miles a day. Because at some point you just can't rationalize adding more volume on top of what they're already doing. And a lot of times they want that to be within the long run. They want to do 20 miles every weekend, and that could end up being, 50 or 60% of the volume that they're doing. And it's just, I'd rather spread that out a little bit versus just have big hitting days and then everything else just be these tiny or small runs that I just don't think are going to have the same effect, but instead adding more days during the week. But yeah, I mean, I agree as well. It's just most people want to run more volume, but they sometimes don't understand that that can actually sacrifice the quality that they do. And I don't like that inequality of putting more emphasis on quantity over the actual quality of your running. And I always try to do my best just to tell people and try to explain to them that, hey, we need to focus on the actual intensity of the runs and how well you're doing that and how specific that is to your race versus how much you're running in a given week. The volume itself there should be supportive, but it shouldn't be the primary objective, especially when you're in the middle of a training cycle and you're training to a specific time or place goal.
I mean, I think the big reason is we all know and have done it ourselves and have watched people do it, but you can just add junk, what we call junk mileage, I guess. But you can be altering your program to just add in more mileage that isn't making you faster. Like you'll see it with a common example is an athlete will like start a session, it's not going well, they cut it. And so they're like, oh, well, I'll just run more easy tomorrow. And it's like, well, you weren't ready to run the fast stuff today that we needed. So what is like another 90-minute run tomorrow? Then we're just even more fatigued. And then we're again not ready for that next session. And so, yeah, we don't want to be chasing it for the sake.
What do you guys tell people when they're trying to make up runs? So they miss a run or they miss some mileage or they miss a hard session or a couple of reps that just didn't go well and they're trying to make it up. Like, what is your actual dialogue to those athletes?
Stop.
Please
Don't
don't.
don't do that. Yeah, they're like, "Hey, can I make up this run on Friday? Can I add some mileage?" I'm like, "No, you can't." Like that doesn't serve any purpose. Like what we're just looking. It's just about the number. It's not about the session itself. So
Yeah, what I
I
tell
shut that
people is
down.
that like that's my almost only job is like when you miss that, then okay, so we had a lower total load this week. Well, then I kind of know, oh, like we missed a run or two or something happened, so we're a little lower this week. So maybe next week we can push a little more because we're coming off of a almost taper like instance, and so that's my job and that's what I do, and so I'm gonna fix that for you. So don't just get back on the program, get to the next day. And there's rare instances where maybe we will like something happened crazy and the Tuesday workout got cut short. It's like, oh well, maybe I'll go add a little something on Friday or the long run, like, but that's what I do. Don't just like freestyle some changes yourself.
Usually that makes sense. Most people have multiple rest days during the week. And so it sometimes it does make sense just to shift things around or add it during a day that they had planned time off. And I don't see any problem with that at all. But I try to avoid that as well, just because I think it's just a really bad mental place to be. It comes from insecurity, and it's just not a good habit to have ingrained. It's like, hey, if things don't go well, I just make up and add more. I punish myself for not being able to do what I was supposed to do. And again, it comes from speaking of experience. Like I used to do stupid things like that all the time, and for what? It didn't give me any benefit. If anything, it's just like trying to fill a hole that it just never actually gets filled. So I just don't. I try to, and that's just a very common thing for people to do. And I just
Also,
yeah.
also think it's kind of about routine. I think it's one of the hardest things with any athlete is establishing a really good routine. And so like getting into the habit of getting up and running at 7 a.m. every day or whatever their routine is. And then so if we have say we have a day off, scheduled day off for Saturday and a scheduled day off for Tuesday or whatever their schedule is, and then they miss a Wednesday run, but they would usually make that up on a they could make it up on a Saturday. I almost would rather them not get out of their normal routines. Like let's just keep it what we always do every week. Saturday's your family day. Let's not mess with that. Let's not throw yourself off. It's your day off. It's a day before your long run. Let's just keep it for what it is, and then we'll just get back on the routine next week. Like that missing of a 6 mile run to me isn't worth like sacrificing the routine of the week. Like I'd rather just stay in that and not mess up that flow if possible. And sometimes you got to make changes. People travel for work or whatever, and sometimes it does make sense. Okay, that's a day off. Let's make it up there. That's fine. But more often than not, I'd rather than not, upset that routine if possible and keep that going because it's hard to develop that. And once you get out of it, it's hard to get back into it.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think that brings up another good point of like where we're focusing. And maybe this is something I need to I try, but I could do a better job of like communicating this to my athletes. But like, I think that's also how we view the success of a training session or a week. And for so long, I think this is one thing I've done well is that like in my training, the success side for me is more of the mental. Like, how was my composure? Did I stay in it when it was tough? Like, it's never really been about splits for me. It's like, cause we've lived in hilly areas. We all lived at high altitude. And so like the times don't always mean, maybe what you think, or like, I've had periods of running really high mileage. And so again, splits aren't going to mean everything, but like sometimes people are so just like, I either hit the splits or I didn't. But it's like, on those days you feel good, did you like challenge yourself the last 3 reps and you went a little bit beyond, or like, did you stay composed when it got tough and go, oh, I can't hit it. I need to move everything 10 seconds back, or I need to be at the end of the range. And, even though it's not going well, I stayed focused, or, my favorite thing is when you see someone have a really bad rep and then they get back on and finish the workout, like, because that's a hard thing to not like, oh, it's going bad. I've lost pace. I can't do it anymore. It's like, and so like defining what success is, like, oh yeah, I missed that run, but then I made sure the rest of the week was perfect. Or, my version of success in the workout is my mental performance and my effort level, not just did I hit this GPS number.
I think that's a really good point because it's really easy for someone to see a workout as a failure if they're not able to hit the splits. And when that starts happening on a regular basis, it's just not great for confidence. So I do think that's a really good point of just trying to get athletes to be able to see where you can have a successful workout and yet it not be the best workout that you've ever had or the fastest workout that you've ever had, because you're going to feel different on any day of the week, just depending on what you had leading up to it, what your training looks like, work stresses, life stresses, whatever it is.
Sometimes you can't even explain it. Sometimes you get out there and feel bad.
Yeah, but you can still make the most of that sometimes, right? It's you kind of have to scale it to the effort of the day. And I go back and forth sometimes with telling people to, hey, do we want to focus on the speed of this, or do you want to focus on the effort? And so I think describing that to athletes is probably a better thing to do, and something that I should, just kind of what you were saying, Will, just is something that being better at explaining to people what a successful workout means is a better job that I can do for sure.
Dude, and even a season, like I got a stress fracture last year and didn't get to run CIM and didn't make the trials. And my wife was like asking me all this, are you bummed? Are you sad? And I was like, no, like I like put in an insane amount of effort. I really, like I always have, I try really hard. And I was like really proud of like the effort I put in. And that's all I ever really want. And those things happen, like I want to feel good about that. I did everything possible and tried really hard, but like sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. I don't want that to like control my feelings and outcome and happiness towards my relationship with running.
And probably more often than not in the marathon, you're going to lose. Like it's there are so many variables on race day. So just like shifting that mindset from, having an end goal to focusing on the process goal and being happy with the process and all the progress that you made, like that's hugely important. That's a really hard thing to learn as an individual. It takes a long time to learn that, and it's a really hard thing to teach. And it kind of sounds like BS when you're talking about it to an athlete, but it's so true. You have to be able to divorce the results from the process. And if the process was good and you gained a lot of fitness, like that's a win of a cycle. And you have to be able to take that to the next one. But that's a hard lesson to learn, and that can take some time.
I think we're at the point right now too where we're at different stages of our training. And I think at one point it would be easy for us to compare what we did once one period of the year, 6 months versus the next 6 months, and we would judge that success based on the race results from that. But I think as you get older, you get more experience into things. I think you start to see that you kind of wipe away what you did before and you start fresh. And are you having good workouts then? And that might mean that your paces are different or things are going differently. Maybe you don't race as fast, but like I think you can still have good workouts and be happy with the execution of things, how you felt mentally, how the effort felt, and still not fall into that comparison of where you were previously. So it's like you can still have good training, you can still do things really well, and it not be the best thing that you've ever done. And I think that's probably something that we're going to continue to experience as we get older, right? As we get older and we continue to train, there are going to be points in time in our lives where we won't run as fast as we've ever run before, but you can still have good training and still feel really good about that.
Look, man, like you're preaching to the choir here, buddy. Like,
That's just Nick, Dylan. We're still cool. It's fine.
but yeah, you guys can still call up the performances of your past. I don't really have that ability at this point, but it's an important lesson to learn. And I mean, it makes me a better coach now than I was 5 years ago because I have had to learn how to divorce those things and to be happy with where my training is at now, even though it's not even remotely in the stratosphere of where it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. So that's a lesson everybody has to learn at some point. And the sooner that we as coaches learn it, the better, because then the better we're able to go through that with our athletes because they're going to be going through the same thing at some point. We coach a lot of middle-aged or older people who are going to experience that physical decline at one point or another, and how we handle that and how we teach people to handle that is important to our success as coaches and to their success as athletes, and then finding fulfillment in the sport still.
Well said.
Word.
I'm the resident old head here, so I'm glad I could impart some wisdom on you young bucks. Let's move on and try and find. Let's go to one of the things that people maybe aren't focusing enough. And I have one here. I mean, this is just low hanging fruit, especially coming on the backs of talking about working with older athletes. It's strength training. It's like I would give toes for my athletes to give up one day of running to add a consistent day of strength training every week into their program. I think the benefits that athletes would find from that, just maintaining flexibility, maintaining range of motion, maintaining power, especially as they get older, would be, they would see so many benefits. And the fact that it's like pulling teeth sometimes, and to get someone to give up a day of running or to sacrifice a little time running to get into the gym is really hard conversation to have. But man, like there are so many benefits to be had from that. And that's one that I think almost I would wish all my athletes, and myself included most times too, would focus more on.
Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Oh no, you go ahead. I'll answer after.
That's a big one. I feel like at times I was a little bit anti-strength training. Like, and there's still instances where I don't think it's the case for an athlete. Like, there's some people who I coach, they're like, I have these 4 1-hour blocks, And it's like, well, yeah, we're gonna run. Like, if you're super time limited. But another big benefit, like for me being fairly injured this last year, like a lot of my rehab and things that have helped me come back from that, are just versions of strength training that build into real strength training. And so if you have a familiarity with that, it's so much easier to, I mean, there's a lot of injury resilience that comes with that, but it's also so much easier to build a prehab and rehab program to like come back from an injury and work through those type of things if you know what to do in the gym. So I've been a strength training convert the last few years.
Yeah, I'm the same. I had chronic lower limb injuries for however many years from the ages of 22 to 26, it seemed like. And strength training was pretty much the only way out of that. But I think for most people, as we as we start aging, you're not going to. It gets harder to maintain that muscle mass, and I think that for the population that we're coaching, it's really important to maintain the integrity of your muscles and the integrity of your tendons, really, because those are going to be the things that are going to be you're going to lose a lot of the, I guess, the elasticity of that. They're not going to be able to produce as much recoil off the ground. That's why I have a lot of people do like more explosive stuff as much as possible, and simple things like box jumps, jump rope, just plyometric exercises. I'm not talking about grabbing a weight, grabbing a bar and throwing a lot of weight on it and doing squat jumps with that or anything.
I will say that like that's one thing that kind of annoys me, and especially if we're talking on focus, like some people just go straight to Olympic lifts, and which I think is like great, but they're just so hard to do remotely, and like
Mhm.
they're I mean, it's like swimming, like it's so technical, and it's like I don't know. There's just so many other places that I might want to start before I ask someone to deadlift.
I have like 3 yoga programs that I'll refer people to that's more just like range of motion and focusing on like form, how to squat, like how to activate your glutes, flexibility. Like I would rather people start there than to pick up get into a squat rack and go squat and deadlift unless they're working with somebody, you're working with a PT or someone who can kind of talk you through that. I would just for me, it's like we've all been to those 5Ks where you see the 65-year-old guy who can't lift his knees more than an inch off the ground, and his 5K pace is his 10K pace, it's his mile pace, it's his marathon pace, and I think just like even just working on that range of motion and not allowing yourself to just kind of shrink into whatever your form is and to just continue to have big motions to lift your knees and to have a little bit of power is super beneficial. Even just doing movements that help aid with that, I think just helps stave off some of the decline we see from aging.
I think hip extension is a huge one, and that's something that naturally is going to decline as you age. You just the amount of mobility there in that joint and those muscles they're going to be more tense. I mean, we're sitting right now. Our hip flexors are in a completely flexed position, and we do this for how many years? It's natural that's going to carry on into our daily lives. And even working down the chain a little bit too is your ankle, your ankle range of motion, flexibility there, also very important for pushing and getting power off the ground. So I think those two are really, really important. And those can be
A lot of
achieved
people that
by,
pronate really badly just have no ankle flexibility.
yeah. And I think that doing those mobility exercises are huge. And Nick, you send those to your athletes. I'm sure, Will, you've kind of helped out with your athletes with that too. But especially with a lot of our population probably being between the ages of 40 and 60, like that stuff it is very much low hanging fruit and can be easily achieved through some of it's static work, but other things like lunges or even just doing stuff with weights, foot exercises, lower leg exercises, stuff to just get things engaged, get things in tuned. Really something that we don't see a lot with athletes and can continuously be improved upon, even in small doses, 20, 15, 20 minutes, a couple days a week. Sometimes that's all you really need.
That's also it's funny to give a counterpoint. I sometimes worry about like what we used to call ABR, anything but running. Like there's some athletes that just get obsessed with like every thing in modality besides like picking their feet up and putting it back down on the trail or road. It's like they are strength training and they're talking about the shoes and which gel, and it's like, brother, you ran twice last week. Like we kind of run a little bit. Like let's get you out of the gym. Let's like it's like I don't know. It's like it's so fun and addictive. Sometimes all the other stuff, but it's like I always worry about. There's certain people you're trying to steer them back towards some jogging.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Dylan, what do you got? What's next? What do you think people focus too little on or too much on?
Kind of going back to running, like as Will says, coming off the string training end. I think that a lot of people just don't know how to set up a workout, how to execute it properly, how to go into it, what to do, how to roll through it. I think it's really easy for us as coaches and people who ran competitively in programs that we didn't have to worry about these things. A lot of the runners who are coming to us are not coming from those same programs, and most of them haven't never even worked with a coach before. So I think that learning how to, hey, this is what I do when I walk out the door and execute a workout. This is exactly what I need to do, and I need to do it every time. And it's something that when I've worked with people in person, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that I've never taught them how to do a workout and how to approach it, whether mentally or physically. And my example of that is, so how does someone go from waking up, going out the door, doing a warm up, doing the workout, and then doing a cool down? So I'll let you guys kind of expand on that, and then I can give my take.
Well, 100% the first year I coached, like I noticed, I mean, you're like, it's like, yeah, it's something we know so innately that it's so difficult to explain. And I noticed how like different it was from how a regular athlete would do a workout versus us, which is like just wake up, shoes on, out the door, like you go warm up straight into the sets. You don't switch shoes, you don't use the bathroom, you don't take a gel, and you just do it, and then you go straight into the cool down back inside, you know. And so I actually wrote like a blog post, and it's very long, and I tried to go over all the like intricate secret little things that we might do or that we do every time we work out that regular people don't. Like almost every workout we've all ever done, we probably switch shoes, which isn't for everyone, but for some people, it makes a huge difference. Like practicing your competition and racing shoes, like choosing a location, thinking about bathrooms, thinking about how flat it is, and like matching that to our race. Are we doing Boston? We want a little waviness, or are we, you know, just looking for time and we want a flat loop course? Taking that moment in between. I've done a million workouts with you guys. I don't think we've ever gone from the warm up into the workout ever. You know, we're always going to take a minute. We're going to get water. We're going to all use the restroom. We might take a gel. Most of the time we'll switch shoes. The same thing on the cool down, like even like weird things, like when you give a fartlek, like the rest. Like there are some times where we'll start out walking and then we'll get into a jog, and like when might you do a walk jog? Like, you know, you'll start the first 20 seconds as a walk, or when is it important that, you know, this, oh no, part of it we want to keep our heart rate up, so we want to jog through the whole thing. Yeah, and so I wrote a long piece about all of the things I could think of that we might use that a regular person wouldn't.
On runbaldwin.com.
That's right.
All right.
And so yeah, I put that in my like my training plans and workouts now. So when my athletes are doing a workout, they can reread that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think that's like what the most fun part about coaching is that we like. I told you the other day, I told some guy that we had like secrets, and he was like, "No, there's no secrets." And I was like, "Yeah, but we kind of do. Like, we do stuff smarter and better than the average person because we've watched everyone else and we've done it 9,000 times. So we do have like some industry secrets, like, you know, or and then like, you know, where do the drills and strides come into to play in that gap between the warm up and the, like, we know stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the cool down pace, like, yeah, you're gonna have a pace, but does it matter? No, we're out there slogging. We don't really, you know, we did the work. We don't care what pace the cool down is. All just some of those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Eating beforehand. Nick, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's tricky because, you know, when we would like meet to do a workout, like we're adding based on the things that we do during the workout, the stopping, the changing the shoes, the stretches, the strides, the bathroom, like we're adding 30 to 45 minutes to the total session there. And so I think for the vast majority of my athletes, and even the way I do workouts personally now, you know, I don't want to take all that time, and they don't have maybe that time to give. So it's trying to find like, not everyone's going to change their shoes. Not everyone's going to, you know, go find a place to go to the bathroom. And like I'm okay if they go, more or less right into the workout from the warm up. I would prefer if they stop for like 5 minutes. Hey, let's run through a quick dynamic stretching routine. Let's do some drills, more for just like, hey, the mental reset. Like we're going from running easy to running fast. So let's reset that out. And I think that's, one of the things like changing shoes does. I always feel like that's like that little mental trigger that we're going from
100%.
easy warm up time to business hard work time. And so how can we have that trigger without maybe the time that it would take to do all the other stuff that, we as runners would do in high school or college or beyond college. So I think it's a tricky setup. And I personally, I probably haven't been as good about it as I should have been, just like really explaining out this process to how it should work for everybody. It's kind of more like, hey, I want you to do the session and do the session well. Here are some things that you can do between your warm up and the start. And sometimes I'll put things in there to actually break it up physically, to go warm up, then we're going to do a mile at marathon pace, then we're going to stop for a few minutes, stretch, get some water, then you're going to go into the main set. So some things that just kind of naturally break it up. But I really don't get too deep into the weeds because it's just hard for people sometimes to really take all that extra time. So
100%. And I don't require, even for a lot of people, you suggest that, but just knowing that, like, if you do have that time or space, or especially on a weekend, and there are times where, like, we're going into a marathon, it's like, hey, we gotta put those shoes on before we take them for 26 miles, like, kind of just going over, but explaining what we would do. And so, like, here is, if we had all the time in the world, here's some things. And but like, it's not like we're doing a workout with Kia and we're asking these people to take an hour in between the warm up and the workout. But it's like, yeah, you might take 90 seconds and like pull your heel to your butt and loosen up your quad. Or if you have calf problems, you might do a little like calf flexibility, just kind of thinking about some of those things. You can make your sessions better.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to show people what the ideal way to do it is, and then let them kind of take what they want from that. But I find that a lot of people, they just don't know. If they don't know, then they'll never do it, and they'll plug the workout into or they'll use the VDOT training workout that goes right into their Garmin, and they just go, and they'll never stop from beginning to end. And I just couldn't imagine ever doing that as a runner. Like, I just couldn't go from my warm up straight into the workout, like, without stopping. I mean,
Well,
I always have to use the bathroom.
the biggest point is that same, got to use the bathroom, and like explaining to people, trying to, it's always one of the hardest things, but like, that your feelings aren't always real. We talk about it nonstop. Every competitive runner will say, yeah, I had this warm up, I could barely jog whatever pace. I thought I was gonna die. I switched
Yeah.
my shoes and had the greatest workout of my life. So like, I get all these
Every
things
other
like,
workout.
I woke
That's
up and
every
I
other
feel
workout.
so bad. And I'm like, okay, like, are you hurt? No, I just am tired. It's like, all right, like, well, let's go out there. Let's see what happens. Like, it just, I put no stock into how I feel when I wake up to how I feel in the warm up. And there's been times where I got through 60% and then a light switch flipped and I'm like, and so it's like but that's a thing. Some people are like, well, I felt bad on the warm up, so I just kind of called it, just like explaining how we kind of know that intuitively, that like the warm up will lie to you.
Oh yeah. How many times have you seen me go on a warm up and my eyes are rolling back in my head, and like the workout's not going well, and then I just pull myself out of it and somehow have a good workout? It's like that happens to everybody.
I've had so many up at like Mountain Shadows where I'm jogging in the woods back there and it's like, I'm just gonna get to the car and do some strides and go home. And well, let's try one set, and then it's like the greatest workout. And then that goes back to the mental thing. I'm like, okay, why were you freaking out on why were you freaking out on the warm up? And like, why are you listening to every little feeling that you think, it's like,
Mhm.
but
It's procedural, right? It's procedural. If you do the same thing every single time, then it becomes automatic, and then that helps inform how your race goes, right? So it's all just about habit, and like Nick was saying earlier, about doing the same thing that you do every single week, every single week. So like, if you can set up that process to set up your workouts to go well, then you do that same process to hopefully help your races go well. So just so that anyone who's listening, kind of wants to know exactly the procedure here, is that typically we'll go out to a place, maybe we head out from our house, wherever it is that we're doing a faster workout. go for an easy run, however long that is, and that just being very easy, very conversational. The pace itself doesn't matter. It's really just warming your body up and making a bridge between the easy and the harder part of your workout. And usually that's not going to feel the best. And if it feels really good that day, then good for you. Something that, I mean, that's awesome. Sometimes those days happen, but when you're really, really training, that those 2 or 3 miles or however long that you're warming up can feel really bad. And that's normal, especially if it's really early in the morning and you just kind of roll out of bed like 40 minutes ago. But after that, we usually come back to, ideally, you go back to your car or wherever you have your stuff. You would change into those faster shoes, and or whatever it is that you want to wear. That is a nice mental turning point too, because then you do some drills or strides and get ready for your workout. And usually the drills there are mostly it's an extension of the warm up. So you're kind of getting your body through a range of motion, you're bridging that time, you're kind of giving yourself some space, and then you do a couple short 15-20 second bursts of speed that again help bridge between the warm up and the workout and just help get the body nice and tense and ready for the run. Do the workout and then come back from the workout. Same thing, get changed, take some water, eat some food, whatever you need to do, and then head out for your cool down. And this is what I would consider the proper way to do it and like the non-rush way to do it. When I don't do these things, I feel like the workout is sloppy. Like I feel like it's really sloppy, and sloppiness is not good for training.
Well, and like, when you go in straight, like if you're rushed, so you're at a high cortisol level, your heart rate's elevated, you do the warm up, you go straight into the workout, super elevated heart rate. So like it's going to be hard to keep it in the right zone. We want to come down a little bit. So we're starting a little lower. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely ways to make it a little better. Nick?
I was just gonna say, any final rapid fire topics? Any other things that you guys want to get off your chest when it comes to things that runners aren't focusing enough on or too little on?
Yeah, I have a big one. Everyone that's worked with me will know, and Nick will know this too. But I'm a nut about race day logistics. Like, I want you there like 3 hours, or I tell people 2 hours, so they'll probably do 90 minutes. But if it's me, I'm there 2 hours early.
Yeah, I've recently started having that conversation with athletes more. Like, what's your plan for racing? Like, what time you're gonna get there? Where are you gonna park? You're gonna eat. Because I feel like recently there's been a rash of people who have just been kind of just rushing into it and just they don't get there with enough time. They can't use the bathroom. They're
Like you,
struggling to
Nick?
find parking. Yeah, sometimes like me. I'm not as much of a nut about it as you are, but yeah, I think that's a big one. I want to have like a typed out, double spaced Times New Roman size 12 plan of attack for the morning with maps and illustrations. Give me the presentation. Where are you parking? What are you doing? Where are you taking your dump? I want to know.
I also wrote a really, really long blog post about this. And I mean, again, it's stuff that we do. Like, there are many times I've gone to races. Like, I think you told me one time you took an espresso machine with you across the country, right?
We do
Oh,
take it
me?
when we drive places. Yes, if we're
Okay.
driving to a race, we took it to. Yeah, I think we've taken it to races before to have the same coffee, same food. Like, it packs into the car nicely, so it was easy to do.
Right. So I have this athlete. I love working with him. Awesome dude. He was going to this race and he drinks the same instant coffee, I think, every morning. And he just like didn't. He's like, I hope they have. I can only do decaf. I hope they have. I'm like, what do you mean you hope they have it? Like, we're traveling to another. Like, bring it. Like, don't hope they have the bagel you like, the cream cheese you like. Like, we put in. You paid me for months. We trained for months. Bring that bagel. Like, when we all go to races, our backpacks are full with secret oatmeal and bars, and like we don't just like, oh, hope they got what I like. Like,
Or just like scouting out around like where your hotel is, like knowing what
is
the
there a Whole
restaurants
Foods near
are.
you or whatever you
Yeah.
do? Like, yeah. So I have that all written up, and then before I'm like, what do we do? Like, what do what's our plan? When we wake up, like, don't be like, well, I'll try to wake up. Like, no, like we're waking up this many hours before. We're eating this. Like, don't. I mean, in ultras, it's even 10 times this level because people do that like with the aid stations and stuff. But man, like, again, like what competitive or professionals do, like they don't get to aid stations and vibe it out and like, oh, maybe I'll get a grill. Like I'm taking 2 Martins and I'm taking this water, and like it's a very process oriented system because they know that's what creates success, and we want success. It's more fun when it goes well, I promise you. And so write a plan out, get there early. Again, I went through all that stuff that we might do, like how we get there, when we eat, thinking about bathrooms at the, it's like you have someone who you've worked with for months and they're 5 minutes late because they're standing in a 35-minute bathroom porta potty line because they got there too late. It's like take control of your race day.
Your performance is only good as your plan. So
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. It's not a good idea to do new things at the most important time.
It's not just the new things, it's just not planning it out well enough. It's like this is like what Will said, you've been training for this for 6 months. Like what are we doing not having a plan and going into this, like not understanding what the layout of the race is going to be, like where your corral is, where the porta potties are, like having a plan when you get there to go pick up your bib and make sure you're doing that effectively so you're not on your feet for 12 hours the day before your race. Like all those little things, like just take
Big
care
one.
of
Well, I
it
mean,
ahead of time.
like same like when if I go travel to a big marathon, CIM or a major or something, I will generally go to the expo 2 days before. I don't go the day before. And like I think a lot of people, I mean, depends on your travel, but a lot of people do that if they're there. So they're not trying to figure out how to get to the expo. Like just those type of things
Yeah.
make a difference. I remember running a race in Flag one time. It was like one of those little 5Ks in Sunnyside, and I was just doing a long run. I just hopped in, and so I was like, I did like my first half of my long run, and then went to go get my bib, and it was like one high school kid that was like doing, and I sat there for like 30 minutes. And I was like, dude, if I was like actually racing this, like this would have like really threw a wrench in my whole thing, like my warm up and strides, and like if I still was waiting to get the last gel or like, so like I mean, that's how most like never stuff's always comes up and it's not seamless. You stand there for 30 minutes, you stand at the bathroom for 30 minutes, like, you know, you lost a safety pin when you walked back to your car, and like there's just always stuff that comes up like that. I need to pee like 19 times before a race.
I prior to Houston, the half whatever a couple weeks ago, I used the bathroom 4 different times. Like I had to poop 4 times prior to the race. And if I wasn't there early enough, it would just been a pain. It'd have been a pain logistically. I wouldn't have been in the right spot. Could have missed the race. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen. But those lines get very long, and if you don't plan it out well in advance, then you could be stopping along the course, and then
Or you're just uncomfortable the whole time and you don't run as fast, or there's those instances where you won't push because you got a bathroom situation going on in your stomach, and so
then you get a message and it says, "I would have run this time if I didn't have to use the bathroom." This time, and then you kind of dig into it and it's like, oh yeah, I had Thai food last night. It's like, oh, do you have Thai food before every race? No, it just seemed like a good restaurant to go to.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because like at the top end of performance, it's pretty like lame and boring. But I think for a lot of us, that's not why we're there. We're there to like push ourselves and see what we can do. And a lot of the athletes, I'm not there to like, oh, wonder like what the cool new restaurant in Houston is. Like that's for another time. Here, I'm like, I'm gonna eat this boring sandwich and I'm gonna wake up and eat the oatmeal I eat every day, and then I'm gonna go run a race, So like kind of separating those two things out, I feel is very, very important.
Yeah.
Dylan, any last rapid fire things you want to get off your chest here?
No, I do think this is going to be a multi-part type of series we do here, just because I feel like we could just go on and on about what people are doing too much on or focusing too much on and what they're focusing too little on. So I think half of the other subjects that I feel like we have lined up here can definitely be expanded into future podcasts.
Yeah, we're missing like 30 different topics here that we didn't get to. So yeah, there's definitely some meat left on the bone here. So, Will, anything else today?
Nice.
Take that as a no. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Mind Your Miles pod. This is episode 3. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at mindyourmilespod@gmail.com. Always happy to take your suggestions on topics or answer any questions that you have. Or if you want to get directed to one of our coaching websites, we're happy to do that too. If you want to go read Will's blog, it's at runbaldwin.com/blog. Let's get those
Brother,
numbies up for my man. Let's get some views on those blogs. That's runbaldwin.com/blog. My name is Nick on behalf of Dylan and Will. Thanks so much for tuning in to Mind Your Miles. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.